What's happening, guys? James from Sigma Strength and Physique. Got a pretty cool back and hammy session today. Just quickly take you through my hamstring activation. What I'm actually trying to do here is curl the leg up, which essentially contracts or shortens the hammy without my bum pushing backwards. So it's going to replicate what we do in the leg curl, where we essentially want to be able to make sure our hips stay pinned down when we're curling up and the bum doesn't raise up. So it's just a few activations that I do. But whilst you watch me do that and jump into the leg curl and do my first few working sets, I'm going to talk you through, I guess, the theme for today's session. So with my videos, I'm trying to discuss concepts rather than just dogmatically say do this exercise for 3 sets of 10, and try and give you a bit of insight into my thought process for setting up my sessions. Now, I certainly don't know everything. There's certainly many people out there that know more than me, but saying that, I think every session we do should have some thought process behind it, and I sort of tend to pick and choose the ideas that I think are good from people that I respect, and so I'm going to deliver to you today a back and hamstring session alongside my thoughts. The first exercise we're doing here is single leg hammy curls. This is a great exercise to really shorten the hammy. So as the hammy shortens and contracts at the top, we're placing a lot of load through the hamstring. It's obviously got a little bit of load through the lengthened position as well. But I actually just find it a good, inverted commas, activation exercise. Now, there's no such thing really as an activation. I mean, everything sort of blends in between an activation and a working set, I guess. But this one is certainly both, and I use one leg, so I don't bias or favour my strong leg. And also it just allows me to actually keep my hips pinned down, like we talked about with the activation. I'm trying to drive my thigh hard into the pad and make sure my bum doesn't rise up. You'll notice that when you jump in, you'll probably have a tendency when the weight gets heavy for your bum to rise up about there. And what I'll do is also be able to throw my other leg in to be able to help me out when I'm pretty cooked. I end up doing about sort of 4 or 5 sets of 5. So it's pretty sort of heavy, lowish rep. In general, I think hammies tend to respond better to lower reps and heavier weight. But saying that, like most muscles, you can always vary the rep range. But in general, I think sort of 5 to 8 is sort of the range that I sort of tend to hang around for the most part. So fighting hard here to keep the thighs down, and just this would be my last set. So once I've done my 4 or 5 5s, as you can see me there, I'm actually upping the weight and I go into double-legged and just go to failure. You'll find that your range of motion might diminish a little bit double-legged. Obviously, as you go, your hammies are going to get pumped up with lactic acid and blood, and you find that the range of motion will become smaller. So don't think about trying to get to a certain height. Just close your eyes and just feel for the contraction. So I'm still getting pretty good range there. Bum's lifting up a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, you don't want to stop when form is only 99% rather than 100. You'll never get anywhere with that. But it's just something to be mindful of, and then just a sort of few partials. I think this is like the 3rd drop set I've done. Might even be just down to like 1 or 2 plates. So you really don't need much weights when you're just sort of doing it slow and really squeezing. So again, the tempo looks slow. I'm not into slow tempo. I'm into the fastest speed or cadence possible that allows us to have perfect form, or the best form you can do. So for me, that's going to be that speed. But I'm certainly not into the 5-second eccentrics for the sake of it. Glute ham raises, or Nordic curls, I guess I think they're called. So basically I'm doing a variation here with my hips flexed, which makes it easier basically. Allows the hammy to lengthen when you flex the hips or bend over essentially, and gives you a little bit more force through the hammies. So I'm trying to do here is make sure my hips stay stable, like I don't flop up and down. It's basically sort of back and forth and just trying to stay in the range that's painful. If you go too far back, it's going to be a little bit of a rest. Now, you don't need to go that far. Obviously, as far as possible, I can't quite get the full length. But even if you're just doing little partials, you'll get used to it. And I'll show you a little bit later a way to use bands to make it sort of do assisted ones. There's other ways you can do this if your gym doesn't have this piece of equipment. Just Google Nordic hamstring curls or Nordic hammies, and you'll see that you can sort of just wedge a bar into a rack and sort of stick your feet under it. But here, just little partials, just trying to get whatever I can out. Like, you'll find these are deceptively tough. But essentially the cue is just driving your heels hard into the plate, trying to keep the hips stable. And what I popped up here, which is just really ad hoc, so there's way better ways to do this, it's just a band. So you can do this in a squat rack. You could also do this, you can do this in a squat rack with or without this machine once you get set up. Generally, you can put your whole arms through the band. I just sort of threw this up as a last minute thing. And just allows you to get that little bit extra range of motion. So in our first movement with the leg curls, we're trying to really focus on the shortened range, or when the knee's fully flexed. Here we're trying to really load it when the knee's straight. So there's slightly different movements. Now, neither movement isolates just one part of the range of motion. It does both, but the shortened one was the hammy curl, and this is the lengthened one, and obviously you'll get more power through a lengthened muscle. So this is one, again, where I'll sort of choose a movement like this that really places a fair bit of load through it. Other options, of course, are like versions of your deadlift, like Romanians, stiff-leggeds, etc. But I really do like this one. It's actually a great injury prevention and rehab for runners as well. So most sort of hammy tears from running tend to come as the knee straightens or lengthens. So this strengthens the hammies up in that range. So you'll find that if you've ever torn a hammy, don't laugh at the shin guards, if you've ever torn a hammy running and you found a good therapist, they will probably get you eventually doing versions of Nordic hamstring curls. Here we're going to have a deadlift. Here, got to keep the shins pretty, so the shin guards are on. They are actually, don't laugh, they're actually knee pads, but my calves are so small, they fit very loosely around my shins. This is the first deadlift off the floor that I've done, I reckon, in 12 months. I've been doing rack deads, so I just thought we're going to balls it out, just get a little bit of deeper range of motion and throw some weight around, see where we're at. I deadlift, I guess, like sumo, or it's a variation of a sumo. So wide stance, so because I've got very long legs and relatively short arms, I've got shit leverages for deadlifting, so it allows me to be able to get down into position without my back being rounded. I also do double overhand grip. I've seen too many bicep tears from mixed grip with the one under, one over. So double overhand, just get straps. I'm working my way up to a top set of 5. I think this is about 200-ish, maybe a little bit more. I sort of like a 5 rep ranging. You can sort of do anywhere between 5 and 8. I just find that people's form tends to turn to shit after about 8 on a heavy weight or a challenging weight on that range, and I just get bored going top set around that range. It's just really trying to sit back. It's a sort of a leverage movement. You really want to drag it up your body. You probably can't see in the video, I'm not quite extending and locking my hips, so I don't really care for that. And it also puts a little bit of strain on my tricep tendon on that strapped arm as I lean back, and it really sort of pulls on the elbow. But everything I want from this movement is going to be the first sort of 95% of the movement from the ground to the top. So I think that was the first working set of 5. This is the second one. Just looking from a different angle so you can see the shin guards, so you can see the sort of the hip position. Conventional deadlifts are great. They just don't suit me. Again, legs are too long, arms are too short for me to get down into position for a conventional deadlift. It looks laughable. I'm not fussed with whether I actually deadlift off the floor again after today. I sort of got a fair bit out of it, but I also get a lot out of rack deads. And I just think for overall output and just what suits my body and my goals, I think rack dead with a conventional stance would probably be where I go from here. I just don't think, for me personally, the benefits through the hips and glutes probably justify doing a deadlift off the floor. I can load up more on a rack dead, still work my hammies, still work my glutes. I can actually lock out a bit better because I'm not going as far down. I'm not bringing it off the floor as far. I don't have to actually lean back as much. I can just squeeze the glutes. It's better for the upper back as well. But again, I just love picking up heavy shit. So you can see the right elbow starting to give me a bit of grief on that one. And normally what I do with my deadlifting is probably 1 to 2 top sets, and I mean really good hard working sets. Give myself probably about 2 or 3 minutes and drop the weight about 15% or so, and just do as many reps as possible. So when I say 2 or 3 minutes, don't take that as gospel. You can see me struggling with the straps. I'm trying to strap my right arm well, my right hand well, so it doesn't affect my elbow, and realise that I cannot do the left on its own. Anyway, we get there eventually. But so I think it's about like 180, I think, now, and I'm just going to go for as many reps as possible. Set yourself a target. I think I set myself somewhere between 8 and 12 here, and I reckon I probably got 10. But I know that if I don't set a number, myself and certainly my clients will probably bitch out after about 4. But this just allows us to get a little bit, I guess, of volume, a little bit of sort of, I mean, look, it's not black and white as to what's a neural range. Like, you sort of might say your 1 to 3 or 4 reps is not necessarily a hypertrophy range. It's sort of working more on the neural system. It's not quite as black and white as that. But I do like to be able to get some heavy weight in a traditional hypertrophy range of that sort of 8 to 12 rep range. It just makes me feel good, and also I like to hurt. So that's it for the deadlifting there. But you can sort of see the first couple of movements. We had a leg curl, shortening the hammy. We had a glute ham raise or Nordic, lengthening the hammy. This isn't obviously directly a hammy movement. It's just a bit of an overall body movement with some hammies, glutes, lower back, and now we're actually going to move in to our back workout. So we're kind of working our way up in a way. What I'm looking at doing here is doing one movement that really emphasises upper back, all the scapular muscles, so shoulder blade muscles like your rear delts, or I guess more your rhomboids, your teres, rear delts, lower mid traps, all the sort of scap muscles. I'm not fussed with lats on this movement. There's a bit of lat activation lat movement when you initiate the movement. But what I'm really focusing on here is flaring the elbows out and just getting the shoulder blades to pin together. So really letting the shoulder blades dictate where the elbows go, as opposed to saying I've got to pull my elbows back. What I'm actually doing is getting the elbows to start moving back, and then I drive my chest into the pad, pin the shoulder blades together, and just get those rhomboids and all those scapular muscles just burning. So it's a big movement. I have to stand up to do it because the angles don't suit my height. But the key with this one is just keeping that chest driven into the pad. Anytime you get to the top here and you lean back as you pull back, the load is going to go onto the lower back. You'll see you'll extend your back or curve your back up, and the load comes off the scap muscles and goes onto the lower back, which is not what we're after. And then moving on to a lat movement. So we've gone from hammies up to sort of, I guess, your entire back with the deadlift onto our upper back scap muscles, and now we're just finishing off with some just ballsing through some chins. So I think I set myself a target of like 40 chin-ups just to get through, and I'm pretty cooked at this stage, so I'm doing like 4 shit ones, but at a time. What we're doing here is just getting down to almost bottom and just driving the elbows down, and when you're pretty cooked, just go into a deep hang and just get some partials. Give yourself probably about, say, 90 seconds rest in between sets. At this stage, I'm just sort of chipping away, but again, it's good to set yourself like a target rather than saying I'll do 3 sets of chins to finish off. Set yourself a number and commit to it. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just driving the elbows down. We've got the pretty cool prime handles there, which you don't have to have, but I've got to tell you, they're absolutely amazing. All my clients are raving about the range of motion you can get and just how more comfortable it is on your shoulders, elbows and wrists. You'd be amazed at the angles that your arms want to move during a chin up and they can't with a fixed bar. And then to finish off, because I was getting like 2 at a time straight onto the machine to rep out the last 8 or 10. Anything you can do to finish the back off. So rather than just sort of stop, chuck some bands up, grab a machine, keep going. But that's the session, guys. So I hope you get a feel for sort of how I piece together a session. Please post any questions or criticisms or comments or even gratitude. Definitely like and subscribe, and I shall look forward to producing more interesting content. Train hard.